absolute creates the absolute thinking, and the absolute thinking creates the relative experience. If we want things to instantly express, you have to come from the absolute, not the absolute thinking. And I said, okay. He said, because we modify it down according to our individual thinking. And so I've been looking at how I'm creating my experiences recently. And it's almost like majorly intriguing to look at my own thinking and relationship to what I'm reading, because I have created the idea that I have to clear up my body. I have created this idea that if I see something out there, I have to fix it. So it's a lot of that thinking that I have looked at myself create, and it's almost like the moment I step away from that, the smoothness of life is amazing.
Ernest Holmes' videotape about just believing.
Oh, yeah.
When I went on my trip, I knew it was going to be a wonderful, amazing trip because I believed it. There wasn't a glitch. And I thought, man, because I set the intention. And I think when we go into that space, we're setting an intention for goodness to happen, for source to come through us, and for us to be willing to allow it. And I'm telling you, I'm seeing it demonstrated just constantly.
How do you manifest? How does one manifest? How does it work, right? How does it work? And I feel like doing that exercise kicked it up a notch for me in my understanding of how it works. So the challenge for me right now is, or not the challenge, but the puzzle that I'm working on right now is why did I manifest sleepless nights with crying babies and runny noses and sore throats, and I'm just curious because I'm not judging it. That's what's cool about it. It's like, okay, this is what it is, and of course I love every minute of it, but just a very interesting manifestation. And so when we got together last weekend, I was talking about these 4 steps that had come to me that I've gone over, and Jason said it was way too heady for him there was too much intellectual places where he could go off the track. But basically the 4 steps for anything, if we look at any condition in our lives, so it could be a physical pain or a relationship issue or a business thing or whatever, any condition. And the first step is to realize that there's gems in it for us, right? So what that does is it takes us out of reactor into observer, right? And we go, okay, so I can look at this and I can try to find the silver linings and the gems and the learning or whatever it is. And that step is it's a pretty easy step for most people in this practice, right?
Absolutely.
It's at least everyone gives lip service to that, even if they can't quite get there, but they understand that capacity. And then the second, the second part of that step, the more advanced level of that step, is to realize not only is there a lesson for me in it, but I created it for the lesson, or I attracted it for the lesson. So it's a little bit more of a stretch, because why would I create this condition that I don't like? Oh, okay, I created it because there's a lesson there. But what that does is it helps put you in a powerful stance, right? I'm the one who does this because there's a reason for me to be doing that. And if you can stay in that neutrality about it and stay out of reactor, then you stay in the observer self, right? The second step is to appreciate everything, and not just give lip service to appreciate everything, but appreciate everything. And that takes you from observer into essence level thinking, right? Because now it doesn't matter what it is. There's no judgment about it, right? Judgment goes out the window. It's just, it's an experience, and even if my only way that I can find appreciation for it is to say, this is part of being human. You know, this is one of the many facets of being a human being, having a physical body. Wow, you know. I remember there was a period of time when I went around, a couple years ago, and I went around, everything I looked at, I would say, Goddess, are you seeing the clouds through my eyes? Goddess, are you seeing the mountains through my eyes? Goddess, are you seeing these trees through my eyes? You know, just trying to connect with that level of non-judgment and human experience and that kind of thing. So those two steps, if we spent the rest of our lives doing those two steps, we would be in a much more amazing place than we are. But then there's a third step and a fourth step, and they're a little bit more, they're harder to access. The third step is to recognize that I always lose the third step because I'm working right in it. I think this happened to me last time. It's like, where is it in my brain? But I know it's there. It's recognizing that I called this condition to me in the movie that I'm creating because it's what I wanted most. And that's really hard because the personality goes, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. But somewhere in that resistance is the pathway that source energy is moving through to create that, right? So the resistance is a play that we're enacting or a reaction that we're, you know, playing out, you know, in a certain way. But it's not real. What's real is what is present right now is what I most want right now. And that's just, that's another whole lifetime you could take on that step. Just because the thing is, it's like, I realize I'm driving down the street, and if I'm worried about being late, there's that tension that happens in my body, and by that thought and that tension, I'm creating being late. So that there's a creative aspect to this instrument that we haven't even begun to play with yet. And so I don't want to create being late, so I'm going to create being on time. And there's a whole different body stance and a whole different mental stance that comes with creating being on time. Anyway, so when we did the exercise, and then the fourth step is to understand that the duality, that from the Kabbalion, those dual, that to understand that there are energies that play with each other and play with them to create what you want or what I want. So it's a very, it's like, I was telling Jason, I don't know if I told you this, but I pictured there's a mythology book called Delaire's Greek Myths. It's a very famous, it's got these beautiful, vibrant illustrations, and there's this illustration of Zeus standing in his chariot with all the horses, and the sun's dragging the sun right around the world is what he does. And he's standing there in this mastery with all these horses, because it takes a lot of horses to drag the sun, and he's operating them. So I have this feeling inside of the energies, just working with the energies to create what I want. And in fact, we're already doing that. But the difference is that we've decided to be oblivious of it, and we have allowed some of the energies or the little portals of energy that include things like sickness and poverty and disharmony and conflict with others and judgment. We've allowed those portals to stay open. So Source is just playing through those, just the way Source plays through abundance and well-being, and it doesn't matter. Source just plays through any portal we leave open. Unconsciously, we have these portals open. So when we were in your office and we decided to touch in with beingness, there was this beautiful sense, the three of us just being. And it was instantaneous for all of us. You know, it was dropped in. And what happened for me is I felt the pull, and Jason described this in a whole different way, but I feel like it was the same kind of experience. I felt the pull of, like I was in beingness, and I felt a thought go out towards Kenny and the kids, right? Or I felt a thought go out towards whatever. And so I kept feeling the pull of this life, like pulling on the source energy, creating itself from that magnificent energy. And then I could decide which ones I wanted to allow in. And there was this little tiny section was
Mhm.
was a tiny little section. It was very clearly delineated where drama lives. So things like thinking about having a flat tire on the way home, or those sort of random thoughts, those thoughts that Barbara calls unbidden thoughts. The ones that they live there, and that's open. That's open. It's not very powerful. I, by and large, have a very good life, and I don't have a lot of drama in my life, and there's not a lot of emergencies, or some people have a much wider portal. But there it is. And there's no reason for source energy not to do that, because I've left it open. So my task, if I want to be aware, is to either close it or open it or use it somehow in its openness, or be aware of it at any rate, be aware that everything that I'm experiencing is a creation of my mind. And I allow it into my experience because all these little portals are open in my consciousness. And I could see it. That was what was cool about it. I could sit in beingness and I could see, not with a tremendous amount of clarity, but with some higher level of clarity than I've had in the past. I could see all the different, just like little energy vortexes that pull on source energy to create them. The connection with my daughter, the grandchildren, the ex-husband, all the things that have been present in my mind. So, and what I was saying to Jason, and I'm not even close to this, but at this place, standing in that spot, which I can get to in brief moments, some of the times that I try, when I remember to try, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm standing in beingness and I'm looking down at my experience in my life. Looking down is a relative word, but I'm looking at the experience of this life and how the energy is running, and that's very valuable. But I think what's even more valuable is to be able to stand there and turn and look up. And that's what you kept saying, is this is infinite. And we don't even think to turn and look up at what it, you know what I mean? With that, we get to a level of feeling connected or feeling in the beingness, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not saying that we even should, but that just intrigued me. Like, that came to my mind of, wait, what happens when we turn around and we look up? What's there? So that was a very exciting thought. And in the meantime, I'm trying to find, as I'm listening to the babies cry and whatever, blowing noses and doing that, I'm trying to find the portal, and I found it a little bit last night when I was going to sleep. I was very calm, and I found the place where I've allowed sickness to come into into expression in my life. It's very abstract and it's very hard to describe, but it's this little, it feels when I go there like something drops into familiarity, like something drops into, it's not that it's good, it's not that I want it more than anything else in my conscious mind, but there is this sense of familiarity or groundedness that happens when I get in that portal, and that's what allows the sickness to come through.
The question that came up for me when you were talking about the portals, and that some people have big wide ones where a lot of stuff happens, and yours and maybe mine and Nancy's, certain portals are smaller.
Yeah.
My question was, I was thinking about it, is what if we just decided to close it?
Right.
What if we just said, and I kind of said this last night because I felt like I was getting sick. I'm just going to use this as an example because I was so tired, the time change and all that. So, and I've got this surgery coming on Thursday, and I'm not going to get sick. So I was feeling like, okay, so if I look at it as it was a little portal that I could have gone right to.
Right.
I said, nope. I got up, I drank some oregano, I took some garlic, and I drank a lot of water. And I said, I am whole, perfect, and complete. I went to sleep, and I woke up feeling great. So I think it's just coming down to choice.
Well, it is coming down to choice, but the problem that we face
Mhm.
is that when we resist the portal, we keep it open. So there's choice, but choice without resistance or choice without attachment somehow. There has
Okay.
to be, because as soon as we, and because the resistance is just the other side of the
Of
coin,
the coin, yeah.
right? So we can want something. I want a new car, right? I
Mhm.
can want it. I can go directly to wanting it,
Mhm.
or I can go on the other side and resist. Well, I don't deserve a new car. Or I can
Mhm,
resist
mhm.
it anyway. It keeps it open. I don't want to be sick. I don't know. We do both.
How
And
does it close though?
I don't know, and
Well, that's the
I don't
question.
know if we close them, or if we just play them. We just go, oh, there's that energy. It fits in here. Because the thing is, if I want to create a life for myself, part of that creating a life for myself is knowing what I want it to be like, right? So that's the positive fuel source. That's the sustainable fuel. I have a vision, do my vision board, whatever. I know what I'm going towards. But part of it also, and Abraham says this, part of it is knowing what I don't want.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
So both energies have to be in play, because only on this plane do both energies exist.
Mhm.
See, the nature
Mhm.
of this physical reality is that both of those energies exist. As soon as we get into beingness, there's no duality, right? There's no there's no opposite and equal energy. So the trick is not so much about resisting or not resisting or closing or opening. I don't think it's about releasing judgment and working the process using both that which is pulling me forward and that which is driving me from behind.
The power of that observation is that however it became small is probably that which lets it go. It's the same thing
Probably,
that lets
it
it
probably
go.
is just a
Absolutely.
little
It's-
more.
it
but
is,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, and the thing that it really struck me is that this concept of just exploring the spiritual aspect of our being, and the thing that triggered you to want to look up
Yeah.
to the higher level, that type of awareness and that type of understanding is what has created this sense of it being small, because we're looking at who and what is more so and more each day.
So are you saying that the portal itself may not actually be smaller, but is less of a, in relation to the overall understanding of who we are, it is less than in a person who has a more restricted
Mhm.
experience of who they are? This portal takes up more percentage of their consciousness
Yes.
than it does of ours.
Yeah, the greater
Right.
aspect.
So that's a great point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The greater aspect of us, I mean, since the more we look at this, and it really is about looking at who and what we are,
Yeah.
and how we are expressing life. I really, because when you were sitting here describing yours, I thought about all those things that I thought about this week that I wanted to just,
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to,
Yeah.
and it's, and as I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking, okay, that's just the other side of me.
Yes, it's exactly the same
Okay.
motion in spirit, right? It's
So
exactly,
how do
that's
I-
beautiful. I love it.
How do I, how do I,
Push pull.
Yeah, because there's no difference.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
how do I
So-
free, how do I just free myself?
Yeah.
How do I just experience real freedom? Because one of the things he says in there, you can't have both. You
Right.
can't have this resistance stuff
Right.
and freedom. They don't
Exactly.
exist together.
Holmes talks about it. You're
Yeah.
either pulling something in or you're pushing something away.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
it's a constant.
And so, one of the things that came to me this week is that to kind of leave things alone. I mean, again, I'm getting that. Every once in a while it hits me.
I know,
All
you
right.
keep coming back to that.
Yeah.
Just get out of the way.
Yeah.
Allow to leave. I know it. I mean, I go away from it, but it something brings me back to that
Yeah.
concept. And I was talking to Luz earlier about how you have something, and we both were talking about how you hear it and you kind of get it, But way down the line, that's what I meant by that concept.
Yeah. Woo.
And I feel like I know that is a very significant concept for me to get.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to tell you, I'm not sure that I have totally grasped the concept of leaving it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I'm still in a lot of this, that.
It's a second chakra issue too.
Yeah.
It's a control
So-
issue.
It is,
Yeah.
So when I get excited about any aspect, and I realize, okay, you're not leaving it alone, huh? So it is important because one of the things that I noticed when we went into that experience, when we had that experience, I was very interested because when I looked within myself, I saw lots of wonderful energies. I saw the most abundant purple energy just floating there that I had access to. And I was, this is so exciting. And somewhere along there, and it was interesting too because I was a little girl in all aspects of it. I was a little girl. But one time I did all of a sudden looked up and said, what if I go over there where all of this comes from? In my own consciousness.
See, that's the same thing that I went to. It's like, what if we turn around and look up, right?
Well, why don't I go where all of this comes from? And it was like, as soon as I turned to go there, it was, all the rest of it just disappeared. Everything out here just, and it was
what
just,
was left?
what was left? It was just me, it just being. And I wasn't doing anything at that stage. And that was very fleeting. It seemed like it was an infinite amount of time, but it was very fleeting. And I don't know if that makes sense when you say it's an infinite amount of time, but it was very fleeting. And it was
Because
like,
it's deep and not inside.
it was like,
Yeah.
and it was nothing.
Yeah.
And then,
And then the mind kicks in and starts to create again.
yes,
Because
and
the
it had me
nature
to
of
go
the
back
mind.
in there
Right,
where all this nice stuff,
Right.
energy, all this creation was.
Right.
It was like I left that and went right back
So
there.
that's the experience of God.
Okay, I just had this thought. This is gonna sound crazy, but maybe not. I don't care.
It's all right.
There's a part of me that feels and has felt this for a long time, subtly, that I almost don't want to get it all completely. I don't want to go, I don't want to look up and see the absolute, undeniable truth. Because then what happens?
You and 6,999,999,999 people. Really.
Because
really,
the
that's
fear
great.
is that we would lose being ourselves.
Yes!
Yes.
Or,
Yes.
or leave this plane.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Ascend.
seriously. Ascend.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what
I
Abraham
want to stay here.
said?
That's what you're saying.
And you've heard Abraham, I know you heard this tape, when Abraham was talking to this woman who was talking about dying and transitioning and her dog and all this. And she said, I don't know why you people are constantly worried about it. If you knew how excited you were to come into these bodies, you would stop worrying about what's going on over there and deal with this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, they said the excitement that we had
Yeah.
about coming to this plane was overwhelming.
And we do.
Yeah.
So what's cool about that place,
Mhm.
that choosing point, is now you can choose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which dramas you want to have.
Yes.
Yes.
How you want to
And
be
that's
on
the
this
significance.
plane.
Yes.
How you want to interact with the things that happen on
Yeah.
this plane.
Yeah.
Who you really are in
Mhm.
relation to the things that happen on this plane.
Mhm.
So you can always retreat into beingness.
Mm-hmm.
You could, and we do.
And we do.
And that's what Jason was saying in that exercise that we're doing, and he thinks about it a little differently. But you know, it's this practice. It's like a muscle of
Mm-hmm.
allowing ourselves to be in beingness, and then allowing ourselves to create with a thought, and then allowing ourselves to be in, it's like breathing, and then allowing ourselves to create with a thought.
Mm.
And when you think about when people have focused thoughts, or they use a vision board, or they have discipline in their minds, or focused thoughts, the power that comes from revisiting beingness, that focused thought, beingness, that focused thought, and we can live that. There's no reason why we can't get stronger.
Right. Right.
And it's like a muscle. The more you exercise it,
Oh, absolutely.
the stronger it
So
comes.
here's Zeus standing in the chariot dragging the sun. There's 20 horses, and he's got a rein for each one. And he's using the force and the power of the horses to do what his intention is to do. You know, that's what we end up doing. It's awesome.
It is awesome.
I think that I was thinking that when you were talking about Zeus, how so many of those metaphors that we have in our history, they are metaphors of how life is and how we experience it, and that they are a teaching experience,
So
and they're rich.
Yes, I'm going to say something super bold. Let's think of the crucifixion. You know, as the same metaphor that came down through history, demonstrating something. You know, I mean, why do we think about the crucifixion different from Zeus? You know, why do we take that one more seriously? It's because it feeds our love of drama that keeps us here.